Hello everyone, it's Dr. Carin here. I hope you're doing well today. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about hormone health in terms of skin health. So I'm going to be giving you 3 hormone solutions that you can get started on right away to help improve your skin. If you're tuning in right now, just say hello, give me a thumbs up so I can see who's there. I'm just going to give a few moments to let others pop on. As always, drop comments, questions, anytime as we go here. We've been talking about hormones for the last 3 weeks now, and I'd love to know what tips or ideas have resonated with you. What kinds of things have you been thinking about or maybe trying to incorporate in your life? Give me a little comment and let me know. One thing that I wanted to just emphasize a little bit today is we often talk about self-care, right? When we're talking about stress and hormones, but I want to emphasize today the importance of community in hormone health and health in general. If there are dietary changes or activities or you're looking to incorporate, definitely see if you can involve a supportive friend or family member to do that with you. We know that not only are we more successful in accomplishing and trying to incorporate those goals, but it's way more fun that way. And just the positive community environment and support, that by itself can be very, very healing and balancing to our hormones. So I absolutely encourage you to not only take some of the tips and ideas that you're getting, but share them and see if you can implement them together with your tribe, with your community. And if you can't find a friend or a family member to do that with, look for a community even online to check in with. So if you're just popping on now, say hello. I'd love to see who's there. Today it is Monday, July 20th. And again, we're going to be sharing 3 hormone solutions for clear skin. Okay, let me start off by asking you this. Have you noticed that your skin is changing a little bit over maybe the last few years or even the last few months? Is your skin getting kind of oily, or is it more of a dryness issue for you? Is there a loss of elasticity or irregularity in the texture or getting a rougher skin? Maybe it's more breakouts or acne that comes and goes. Maybe it's with your cycles. Maybe there's a new and unwanted hair growth, maybe on your face, or unwanted hair loss on your scalp that you've noticed. Our skin definitely gives us these little clues about what's going on with our hormone balance. And over the course of our lives, we can see those hormone patterns shifting and changing our skin. The Greek root of the word hormone it means to urge on or to cheer on, which makes sense as hormones are these chemical messengers that urge our body to do different things. But it's also a way that hormones can actually communicate to us about what the body needs to be supported. So from our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, we can naturally see those shifts in our skin quality, but not all of these changes are, let's call it, just aging. Oftentimes when we balance our hormones, we can see our skin health improve. So I wanted to share with you 3 of these skin issues that I commonly see in my practice, and of course, what you can do about these skin imbalances, especially when their root issue is a hormone imbalance. So number 1, reduce strong testosterones, and I'll go into exactly what I mean by that. But if you have oily skin or breakouts or hair loss I was talking about on your scalp, or unwanted hair growth like maybe around your jawline, or even on your chest or your back, unwanted hair growth for women, this can be an excess of this group of hormones called androgens. And this group of hormones actually includes things like testosterones, but other hormones as well. And some of those hormones are what I am calling strong testosterones, because they've been linked to these unwanted symptoms that we were just referring to. So for this purpose, I'm going to just keep calling them strong testosterones, just to make a distinction between all not all testosterone is bad. Of course, even for women, we need a healthy amount of testosterone too. But I want to make a distinction between some of these androgens in excess amounts can be related to some of these oily breakout, hair loss, hair growth issues. So we're going to call those strong testosterones to simplify the conversation here. But too much of these strong testosterones can be made by the ovaries due to excess insulin action on the ovaries. Now, women with PCOS can have a higher production of these androgens, these strong testosterones, and that can lead to many of the symptoms that we just mentioned about the skin and the hair, but also it can lead to irregularities in the cycles. So the patients with PCOS are generally very familiar with what I'm talking about here with those strong testosterones. Now, one of the things that you can do is drink spearmint tea. This is something that's a really simple herb that we can pretty much access easily to help reduce these androgen levels. So there's a couple studies on this, but one of them found that just a couple cups of spearmint tea a day for 30 days, and the study was on women with PCOS. Those women after the 30 days reported less androgen symptoms just from those 2 cups of spearmint tea a day for a month. So this is something that's very promising, that's very safe and very accessible for any one of us to be able to start to do. There are other herbs that are helpful to reduce those strong testosterone levels as well. Saw palmetto is a really common one. This is something that's traditionally used. Definitely make sure that you check with your practitioner, make sure that's suitable for you, but there are other herbs like saw palmetto and spearmint tea that can be helpful for this. Now, I found, because I was referring to where those testosterones are coming from, right? It's that insulin action on the ovaries. I found that dietary and nutritional treatments aimed at reducing insulin action on the ovaries is the most important and most effective way to reduce those strong testosterone levels in the long term without needing any herbs or anything like that. So how do you do that? So reducing insulin action. Now, one of these big ones are just like insulin triggering can be very, is a huge part of something like diabetes, right? Where blood sugar control starts to, blood sugar goes up and insulin levels go up to try to control it. And that's when we start to get into this issue with insulin resistance over time. So anything that's helpful for blood sugar is helpful to reduce insulin action as well. So that could be reducing just the amount of sugar that we're taking in, amount of refined flours. That's a really good place to start right there. Sugar and flours as little as possible. Then move towards reducing higher volumes of starchy foods or switching from to lower glycemic index foods. I have a question pop up here. Flavia says, does peppermint tea have the same effect as spearmint tea? That's such a good question, and I have the same question myself. I have not seen an equivalent type of study on peppermint tea, and if somebody else has, please share it with me. Both peppermint and spearmint do have very, very similar phytoconstituents, so I imagine they would be very similar. From a Chinese medicine point of view, they're slightly different in terms of temperature, and spearmint tea might be a little bit cooler, a little bit more mild. So anything that's creating like a redness on the skin, you might want to do cooler foods, and I think spearmint is a little bit more on the cool end. But otherwise, in terms of the constituents, I think they're pretty similar. Thanks for that. That's such a good question. My question as well. And I think it's worth it to definitely do peppermint tea as long as you don't see that redness increase. All right, so back to the insulin action. One of the things that we were talking about, just reducing sugar and reducing the triggers of insulin, one of the things that I would look at beyond sugar and carbs is dairy protein. And the reason here is because dairy protein, compared to other proteins, seems to be more triggering of insulin. A lot of people, men and women who have acne, have seen this when they take dairy out of their diet. their acne calms way down. And now part of this could be just there is the lactose sugars and things like that in the dairy. That might be part of it. But the dairy protein itself also can be triggering that insulin. So that's a good one to just watch out for. Might want to reduce a little bit of that if you think that insulin action is too high for you and that is causing the testosterone issue. And of course, ask your practitioner if there are other practices that you can do. Like sometimes I use fasting to help with insulin health. Of course, for women, you want to make sure that that matches with your hormones and also the appropriate time of your cycle for fasting. And as well, on top of the spearmint and saw palmetto, there's herbs and nutritional therapies that are really helpful to enhance this interaction between insulin and ovarian function. That can be super helpful, especially for women with PCOS. And that can help with your skin, but also with cycle regularity. All right, any other questions about that strong testosterone issues? So for sure, you can use these herbs like the spearmint to reduce the levels, but at the root of it, you really want to get to where or why there's a strong insulin action on the ovaries, and this is for women, of course. All right, and then second, number 2, boost progesterone. So if you have breakouts before periods, where your acne flares up or comes out before your periods or gets worse before your periods, or you tend to have pimples that are kind of large and there's quite a bit of pressure there, they can be quite painful. This is called cystic acne. This can be a little hint that your progesterone levels might be at the root of this. So this progesterone, you may have heard me talk about this in the past as well, with cyclic symptoms, PMS symptoms. This can also cause issues with skin. From a botanical medicine point of view, we have some great herbs for boosting progesterone. Chaste tree is my favorite. It's another word for that is vitex, to help to boost progesterone. Again, talk to your practitioner, make sure that that's suitable for you, but that can be a nice tool to help to boost that progesterone level up. But again, we're wanting to always think, so why are the progesterone levels low in the first place? And some of the most common issues here is chronic stress. So women in their 30s and 40s and 50s are some of the busiest people on the planet. So sometimes it's hard for us to even realize if there's a lot of stress. Of course, stress can be a mental, emotional overwhelm, but there are other stresses as well. So what I would suggest is if you have what appears to be progesterone deficiency, or you've seen that in functional testing that progesterone levels are low, you really want to first assume that there's too much stress there and just work on that as much as you can. So again, that stress can be mental and emotional, sense of an overwhelm, could be pressure like work and family pressures, but there could also be other things like chronic, what I call chronic jet lag, where you're out of phase with your sleep-wake cycle is out of phase with the nature's day and night cycle. This can be really hard on your hormones, and it is a stress to our system as well. And then there's things like environmental exposures. So these are things like toxins in our household products and food and air. So these can be really hard to know whether that's actually something that's an issue for us or not. But they can certainly accumulate. Now, we do have built-in detox functions for this, but we are now faced with way more chemicals than our grandparents or our ancestors had to deal with even just 100 years ago. There was one estimate that was saying there's probably about 80,000 chemicals that we're exposed to regularly, and every year there's 1,000 new toxic chemicals being introduced into our environment. And so these are just unprecedented levels of toxic exposures, and unfortunately we know that we're exposed to them even before we're born. There was that study, I think it was 2005, on seeing the 200 different chemicals in the umbilical cord of newborn babies. So we know that we're all exposed to these environmental chemicals. And most of us, especially if you've been talking and listening to us and our talks, we've been talking about this before as well, but you're aware that there's pesticides in foods and the importance of choosing organic foods, especially those on the Dirty Dozen list. But what I wanted to point out today is what is it that we're feeding our skin, for example. Women use about 12 to 15 different personal care products per day, and potentially there's hundreds of chemical toxins in those. And unfortunately, one of the big dangers about that is when we eat food, it goes into our gut, and that goes into our liver circulation, and the liver gets a chance to filter some of that out before it goes into our general circulation. But what happens with a lot of these creams and shampoos and things that are topicals that we put on our skin, it's designed to be absorbed into our skin, and then it goes straight into our bloodstream. It doesn't first go through the liver. So there's potential there of an even higher toxicity exposure. So this is something that I'm definitely concerned about, and want to just bring up, as well as a stress that kind of is a hidden stress. Unfortunately, our modern diets definitely don't help out with this, because we don't often support the natural detox mechanisms fully the way that we need to. So I definitely recommend doing things like a yearly or seasonal metabolic detox to help to support trying to get rid of some of that accumulation in the body. And earlier this year, I did a metabolic detoxification. Now, I'm always looking to do detoxification. I study toxic exposures. I know I have a significant formaldehyde history personally. So I'm always looking for detoxing. But one of the things that I noticed with the metabolic detox earlier this year is that my skin was so smooth afterwards. I promise I didn't do it for that purpose, but it was one of those side effects that I absolutely loved. So the metabolic detox can be a perfect combination to help to support detoxification of a lot of these hidden stresses in our body, and helpful for balancing our hormones as well. If you're wondering what a metabolic detox is, if you're interested in finding out more, you can register for the Metabolic Detox Program webinar. We're having just an information session on this Wednesday, July 22nd at 6:30. The link is in the video description, so you're welcome to join us for that to find out more about what a metabolic detox is. Okay, so just to summarize what we were just talking about is boosting progesterone for that cyclic breakouts and acne and pimples, as well as if you're having the pimples that are more cystic, think about progesterone. And then to do that, you may want to consider herbs that support the progesterone, but particularly looking at where these chronic stresses are coming from that's stealing away that progesterone hormone from your body. Okay, last one, and that is number 3, balance estrogen. Now, we've talked about estrogen a couple times here when we were talking about perimenopause and heavy bleeding. Estrogen can come with multiple different issues. So let's start with the first one, which is, have you noticed any loss of skin elasticity or that plumpness of your skin? Maybe you've noticed your skin becoming more dry or rough. And you might actually notice that different parts of your cycle, like when you're getting your period, your skin might be a little bit rougher, but 1 week after your period, it feels way nicer. So you can see these changes as well within a cycle, but maybe you've noticed them over the last few months or even years, that there seems to be changes that way. And this can indicate lower estrogen levels. These changes are very common to see with menopause, but they can also occur before menopause, especially when there's been a period of stress. We were just talking about stress. Oftentimes when there's a period of stress, all of the hormones across the board, so not just progesterone, but estrogen, testosterone can be lowered. So with that, you can have, with low estrogen, you can see low libido, vaginal dryness as well, on top of that, those changes in your skin. So to support more robust hormone health, the first place that I would look at is the opportunity to build in those anti-stress habits. And Flavia is saying, yes, I noticed that. I think you're referring to maybe that having the hormone changes after a period of stress maybe, or the changes in your skin over the last little while. One of the best ways to do this, and we've talked about this with stress and hormone connection, is to build in anti-stress habits in the day. So there could be meditation or restorative sleep. That's such a good one for your sleep, for your skin. Gratitude journaling. I will attach the links to all of these videos and summary notes within the summary notes for this video, just so you have that on hand. So any one of those can be really helpful, or multiple of them. A second point that I would make with lower estrogen levels is eating a plant-rich diet. Because this kind of diet, you're going to have a lot of those what's called plant estrogens or phytoestrogens. These are estrogens that are weak and safe estrogens. They're going to be coming from foods like flax seeds or yams. And this can also be really supportive for just reducing inflammation in the body in general. Your practitioner may also just double check your thyroid function and recommend supportive herbs or nutrients for making sure that not only is your estrogen level supported, but also stress and adrenals, as well as just digestion, that you're actually breaking down your food properly and able to absorb the nutrients you need to heal and repair your skin as well. So definitely work with your practitioner if you're going to bring in more things on top of the anti-stress activities in your day. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, maybe you've noticed more of an itchy skin, or even like a rash or flushing of the face. And that can come from maybe with temperature fluctuations, being cold outside and coming inside and it's warmer and you're getting a flush on the face, or sometimes eating something and you notice that your skin gets red. These can be a sign of histamine levels being too high. And that could be behind the skin symptoms. And the reason why I'm talking about this under this category of estrogen is that estrogen excess or estrogen dominance can actually contribute to higher histamine levels. So this is kind of the other end of the spectrum. If you have too much estrogen relative to progesterone, then you can have this issue that drives up that histamine level, and it makes you more sensitive to any other histamine triggers. So that could be food that you're eating that has more histamine, or changes, cold exposure, things like that. Again, just like with the lower estrogen levels, with the higher estrogen levels, that anti-inflammatory plant-rich diet is so helpful for balancing your hormones and helping your liver to support and clear out the excess estrogens. There are actually many strategies to help to lower histamine levels as well in the body. I hope to talk more about that. Look out for more future articles and videos about histamine intolerance in the fall. I can definitely go more into that. So far, are there any other questions about the strong testosterone, progesterone, and the low or high estrogens? So we talked about the high testosterone or the strong testosterone levels that can cause more of the breakouts, the oily skin, the unwanted hair growth on the face, even some of the hair loss on the scalp can come from this as well. And we talked about spearmint tea, maybe peppermint tea as well would be helpful. Probably it is. Saw palmetto is used for this, but most importantly, looking at why there is an excess of those strong testosterones. And oftentimes for women, it's at the insulin action between insulin and the ovaries functioning. So looking at what you can do to improve the insulin health is a really big one here, and it can be very, very powerful. Number two, we looked at boosting progesterone for improving those cyclic breakouts, the ones that come and go with your cycles and that are the cystic type of pimples. Progesterone, there's herbs that are great for that as well. You can talk to your practitioner about that. But these are things that you really want to look into, the stress component when it comes to progesterone deficiencies. Okay, and then the last one we talked about was estrogen. So the loss of skin, elasticity, and plumpness, but that being related to the lower estrogen, whereas maybe the itchy or rashy or flushing of the face being related to higher estrogen levels and particularly histamine levels. And Donna says, can't wait to hear all the histamine info. I know, I'm kind of collecting it. I can't wait to talk about it either, actually. I'm just dropping little hints of it because it's coming. All right. I know that sometimes women feel like they're being vain when they're talking about their concerns with their skin or their hair. But I hope this conversation today just gives a little bit of highlighting how caring for your skin health is just part of listening to that deeper wisdom of your body and a really important part of connecting with your body on a regular basis. So I hope that you were able to gain some insight into what might be going on with your hormones based on what you're seeing on your skin and have some tips that you can get started on right away. If you want to join us for the detox webinar on Wednesday, register at the link in the video description, and we'll give you tips on, of course, what a metabolic detox is and also how you can get started on it. Thank you so much to all of you who have been joining me today. If you think that you have friends or family that could benefit from this information, please do share this with them. It was really fun talking to you about this, and we promise that we will, probably Dr. Neetu and I both will be diving into the histamine topic more at a later time. All right, have a fantastic day. See you next time. Bye.